Chris Rand is the editor for the Apple TV Plus series, The Crowded Room. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I want to kick things off by asking you, Chris, what was one of the things that was really important for you to get right in this cut or edit?
Well, first off, I'm one of six. There were six editors on this show. It was a long process. We were on it. I was on it for about a year. But there was a lot of hands that brought this to what it was, and all of us were really interested in emotional honesty and making sure that this was a story that people who could relate to the themes of the show, if not the direct narrative of the show, could see their story and find an earnestness and emotional honesty to that, and connect with that. I mean, I think there's a lot of really great storytelling nowadays is very cynical, and I think this show, part of what drew me to it is it's not. It's very, the ultimate message is hope, and I think really our ultimate goal in the end was to tell a good story and have folks who aren't sure if they can ask for help feel that they can, because that's something that happens in the show. And at the end of every episode we have our Here to Help card, with resources for all that. And with a show with as just difficult topics as this one, making sure that we were staying true to the emotional journey of the characters and to all our experiences, with anything related to the show and anything that we understood it, and just making sure we were true, honest, and emotional honesty.
You can speak like generally, or you could use a specific example if you want, but how do you sort of like, how did you find sort of that sort of message of hope through a show that is dealing with very dark themes and dark experiences?
I think it is those moments where people reach out and they find someone. I mean, I think, the real bright light of the show is Raya, Amanda Seyfried, in her amazing performance. And she's kind of the secret sauce of the show. I mean, when she reaches out, or when Chris Abbott's character, the lawyer, reaches out and helps Danny, or, and has this understanding of the complexity of the situation, that it's not black and white, that, there's elements of this that Danny feels guilty about, or things that he's not understanding yet. And, just to have grace with all that, and finding those moments to pull out of the characters and show how that's affecting Danny, and how that's, bringing him deeper into this journey towards healing.
A lot of this show is about perspective. Most of the story we're sort of hearing from Danny's perspective, but there's then the episode where we see more Raya's perspective, and like perspective is a big part of this show, and particularly the interview thing around. How did you use the edit to help show different perspectives?
I mean, it's every edit is a choice in perspective in the show. It's, deciding how we want to portray the alters, how real are they in any given scene. Particularly in the first 5, we really wanted to live in Danny's world. It's a world of his own, and we want to convey a world that makes the audience love Danny and live inside that world and believe it if we can get them to, or at the very least empathize with it and go along with it. And the drama is seeing that world fall apart for him, and him understand how that world collides with the reality. But one interesting thing with the shoot was that, the first 5 were shot before Amanda arrived. So we as a crew were living inside Danny's perspective. We have the flashback episode with the child, and then 4 with him. And so for 5 episodes, we don't have any of the interview stuff. We don't have any of the questions about the alters. No one's questioning the world. We're just living in the world, and all these people are real, and all this stuff is happening to Danny as we see it. So it was an interesting, as we progressed in the edit and started to then see, it's like episode 6, as you say, Raya, that's we get her side of the story. But that was also when we as a crew were like, okay, yeah, now we're seeing that and we're incorporating that, and that's now inflected onto how the story is evolving and how we're telling it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, so important, I feel like, for shows is the sort of opening scenes that establish things. And I feel like there's sort of two opening scenes in a sense for the world. One is the shooting that opens the whole series. The other one is the first scene, I feel like, in the interview room, where we're getting to know that world and the dynamics between our two leads in the show. How did you approach both of them? Because they are, in terms of energy, very different scenes.
Yeah, I mean, the opening, we want to just feel like here's a big swinging action scene. But again, it's all about perspective, because we're going to revisit that 2 more times. And, set that up to be fully inside Danny's perspective. We're seeing that as he's seeing it in that moment, because then when we revisit it again and he's understanding, wait, I was manipulated to do XYZ. And then again, when we revisit it even later and he's realizing, oh, those people who were manipulating me were actually me. And those people thought they were helping me. It's, as you say, it's a matter of perspective. But because it is the thing, it's the hook, it's the first 6 minutes of the show, and it's a monster location, we want to, here's the 70s, here's, this character is going through something. We want you to immediately understand that. And it's kind of a wild story. So that Rock Center, I think we were supposed to shoot 3 days there. It's a big thing to shut down Rock Center. And on the first day, someone showed up with COVID. So all the walking is Tom and a body double. And then our incredible visual effects team replaced that with Sasha Lane after the fact. And it's seamless. I was like, when they proposed that, I was like, oh my God, how is that going to work? And then we just had an incredible visual effects team that pulled that off. And then, for the post-credits scene, the first interview scene, that was, as you say, all about establishing this tone and these two spaces, this sort of like a little bit manic, a little bit propulsive tone in Danny's life. I mean, sometimes it slows down and you have these emotional moments and these romantic moments and, sad moments and all that with him. But with Raya, we kind of wanted it to be a little bit, she's pushing and then she's stepping away and letting him think about what she's asking. And then she's pushing again and then so it's much more of a balancing act. And, one thing that was kind of wacky with that was originally, as shot, the pilot was the little kid episode, was the Danny flashback episode.
Okay, yeah.
So then we had to figure out how to make those interviews, like the interview coming out of Rock Center, we then had to sort of figure out how to make that the first interview that then leads into high school. And then the interviews were such an amazing and complicated, fascinating process of just like, they're all wearing similar clothes around, so you can play a lot with pieces from different episodes or looks, and like just trying to get them to tell the story we need to tell. And they're just both so good. I mean, as I said, Amanda came in halfway through and it was just like, whoa, you're amazing. And just the secret sauce. And Tom is, he's on a whole other level in this show and just a gift. But yeah, I think in terms of, the dichotomy, it's about just sort of like the reality of the interview and trying to push towards a reality that Danny can understand, which can be gentle, but sometimes you need to push a little bit. And then, just sort of, there's a little bit of magic to the flashbacks because it's in his head. It's him recalling these things that aren't necessarily real or how they really happened.
That's like, I like that whole interview sort of like, well, I think like a lot of the shows establishing like a timeline, right? In a lot of ways, but also the way it unfolds, the way it's told from him and the way the episodes are stringed together, it's a bit disorientating time as well. And you're sort of like, there's a lot of recalibration that needs to happen for viewers. And I can only imagine in the edit room, you had to do a lot of recalibrating.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments where we had to be like, okay, wait, at this point, she knows that he doesn't think this, but he thinks this, but this is what really, it's like, there's a lot of things with that. But I think our North Star was always chasing, as I said, emotional honesty, like, I don't think I think there's folks that come to the show as if it's a mystery box, and that's not really what it is. It's, as you know, it's about perspective. You're living in Danny's world, and the drama comes in seeing how his perspective updates, unfolds, and how he goes into the world now. Yeah.
Yeah. And like then you've also probably got to think like, and what is the audience meant to know at this
Oh
point?
yeah.
Even though they know this, does the audience know? Like yeah.
Well, but that's what I mean. We can't like, there is sort of like a big reveal, but like, I think Akiva had said this in an interview. There's like this story has been told. So our whole thing is trying to give a different take on this that is more about like the causality of it and the experience of addressing it, rather than like, hey, this alter causes him to do XYZ, the way that a lot of those stories are, which no shade on that. But this is just the story that we felt could be told now. But the problem is the signpost for something with DID is like mystery box, thriller, all this stuff that is a way to get folks in the door. And I think finding a way to then hook emotionally was really what we were gunning for. Once you get through it, like, yeah, as you say, it starts with the shooting, but then we have to get the emotional hook and get you in, and considering your way through it. I mean, like, there's people who yeah, we can't track who thinks what shot to shot. Like, there's people who I'm sure were like, the first shot of the show, they're like, there's a mirror with him and her. She's not real, like, but then there's people who, episode 6 rolls around and they're like, I didn't see that coming. It's like, you can't cater to all levels of film and television literacy. It's just, everyone has their own experience watching it. And particularly something like this, where like, if you were familiar with the project beforehand or the source material, there's just no like way to make sure that twist is preserved for everyone. So it has to be a rewarding story in another way.
What for you is the most challenging scene to cut?
Scene. The hardest day was the day we had to watch all the suicide takes. That's not a fun answer. The hardest episode was the courtroom episode 9, because you're tracking Candy's journey, which is so tragic in that whole episode. But meanwhile, you are building towards this catastrophic choice that Danny makes at the end of the episode, that he just feels like he has nowhere left to turn. And our access to him in that episode is shots of him looking and reacting in the courtroom. He has about 4 lines in the whole episode. So the balancing act of like building a compelling courtroom drama for an episode, and tracking the wins and losses and making sure like, okay, Marlon did this, but then he did that, like doing that whole game, while also making sure that we're building towards Danny's going to do this really tragic thing at the end of the episode, and earning that emotionally was a balancing act. And that was hard, but I hope we pulled it off.
Oh, nice. Was there something, Chris, that made you like, was there a film or a show or something that made you want to be an editor?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of movies. It's sort of a running joke with everyone. Like, particularly during the strike, I'm like averaging going to the movies at least once a day.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, one movie that really stuck with me early on, I love New Hollywood, and The French Connection was one that I remember seeing in my teenage years and just being like, wow, the way this is edited for pay, like I didn't even understand. Like I'm articulating something that I didn't understand at the time, which is just like how they built this movie, with, again, so little dialogue, but they're conveying this pulse and this movement, and just you're on the edge of your seat for the whole movie. I mean, particularly the subway chase scene, there's just no dialogue, but you're understanding what's happening and it's moving, and it's a beautifully edited movie. And that, I think I didn't even realize it, but that was one that was like, oh yeah.
What makes great editing for you?
You're engaged and you're feeling something.
Yeah.
And not necessarily feeling what you're supposed to feel, but you're feeling something. I had one editor tell me, I've had some really amazing mentors over the years, and I had one, we were arguing about whether or not, our opinions on something, and his point was, there's that scene, and whether or not you like it, you react to it. And that's tough. Like eliciting a reaction and building something so that it gets a reaction is always a tough thing to do. And they did it.
Yeah. Was there something in this series, like, or what was it, one moment in this series that elicited a reaction from you in the crowded room?
There's so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a series with a lot of like things that hit home for me, and it's, you know, seems like a lot of folks, but the thing that always got me, the verdict. I love the emotionality of the verdict, and I can't help but feel so, you know, it's like we edit things, we watch things 800 times, you know, it's like, particularly people who do a comedy, it's like, you know, if you're still laughing on the 800th time watching it, they are like, okay, we got something. And that was one where I remember the first time I took a whack at the verdict, and I was like, you know, okay, I'm getting a little misty here, I think this is going to work. And then that just never went away. So that was, yeah, I think the verdict.
And we've talked about perspective of the characters, but you as the editor, did you have a different perspective at the end of cutting together this series about the story than you did at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has allowed me to embrace something that I didn't really know about myself, which is that I'm a fairly feelings forward editor. And this show just sort of like wrung that out, where it's like, hey, go for it, go for the jugular, get that feeling, you know, be earnest, be sentimental, be honest, and don't, like, you know, doesn't have to be cool. The show isn't about feeling cool, it's about feeling things. Yeah. And engaging with it and talking about it. Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for talking with us today about the
Thank you.
All the best of luck with the upcoming awards in the pipeline for this series. And people who love awards like we do can go to goldderby.com and cover the entertainment award, where we cover the entertainment awards there, join discussions in forums and stuff like that. So, Chris, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was fun.